inside score was composed for Victoria Marks, who created a video for me. In talking with Vicki, she said she'd like me to compose a sort of classical style piece with varying moods, several different sections, and she would like to create a video that imagined the thoughts that I was thinking as I was playing this piece.
We're here with one of my favorite people, Guy Klucevsek, accordionist and composer. Guy, that was a great performance.
Thank you.
How did you choose the accordion as your primary instrument?
Well, I grew up in the 50s in western Pennsylvania, and it was on television all the time. I don't think anyone who didn't grow up in the 50s can believe or understand how popular the accordion was. I mean, it was in the 50s like the guitar was in the 60s.
Were you attracted
All
by
right,
the
I'm going to bring you
sound
on,
of it
Guy.
or the look of it?
Well, I think it was the whole package. I mean, I used to see it on TV
Wrong one. There we go.
2 or 3 times a week, hear it on the radio all the time. There were variety shows then, and Lawrence Welk was on every week, so there was Myron Florin playing
Let me
away
pause
into
this.
Contino.
There we go. Hey, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good.
to see you, Dallas.
Good to see you too, Guy. Let's see. There we go. Much better.
It's been minutes.
Yes, definitely. D Stetzone. Cool. That's a wonderful accordion player over in Berlin. And Bertie Wooster, you can't see this, but sorry, let me blow this up. This is the chat. And we've got Valley Drive. I think they're in the Midwest, and Bertie Wooster's out on the West Coast, and D Stet. So these are the first people saying hi to us today.
Hello. Nice to see you. Thanks for tuning in.
This is a unique form, Guy, that during 2020, when we were all stuck at home, I found my way to this platform that we're streaming on now called Twitch. And the platform is mainly known for people playing video games and broadcasting themselves playing video games, and then they have a bunch of people all over that watch them play video games, which is not what I'm into. But there's a small segment of people that do other things, and there's a lot of people with like leftist politics that cover current events and stuff like that. And so with everything going crazy, I started watching a few of these, and so it would be like just me here, but then I'd be pulling up CNN's website and we'd be watching a video and I would be talking to the chat, and then a video from YouTube on oh, this is going on, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, well, that is a really cool format. I could do this with accordion stuff. I could just hang out for a couple hours and watch, I could pick a theme, which I do quite a lot. We've done Fianato music and Lautari music of Romania. We had another Lautari music of Serbia. I'm trying to also work my way through, to get an understanding. It occurred to me, I really don't know anything about the diatonic accordion music or any accordion music of South America. I know about bandoneon from Argentina, the tango. I know about fajo, and that's about it. I was like, oh, holy cow. So we've gone through a lot of that stuff. And I've started to have special guests, which I'm very, very thrilled. So happy that you're here. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
Cool.
Look forward to this. And Twitch is new to me, so.
Cool. Yeah, there are some musicians that perform live on it, but I think the majority of the people here, Twitch has, I don't know, millions of people on it right now. It's a huge platform, but I think the majority is people playing video games, but there's other stuff too. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Anyway, let's see. If you caught us before we started, we were watching beautiful performances by Guy for some of his compositions for work with dancers, which is something just right off the bat. How does the movement of the body relate to the movement of music? And if you don't like that question, then any sort of wherever that leads you about music and dance.
Sure. Well, I'll backtrack a bit by saying how I got involved in it. When I moved to New York in '76, the first work that I got here was off-Broadway, playing in small off-Broadway ensembles led by a friend of mine, Dan Ercola, who was a theater composer. And oftentimes in works at La Mama, there were dance theater works, so dance was incorporated into text and movement. And as I did more and more of that, some at the Open Eye as well, led by Gene Erdman, I started to meet more and more dancers, and Dan was writing music for them too. And eventually some of them asked me if I was a composer, and I said yes. And the first one that I can remember asking me is Maureen Fleming. And I wrote a piece for her called Scenes from a Mirage, An Old Woman Dances with the Sea. I wrote a suite of pieces for her solo that she did at La Mama and elsewhere. And I loved the medium. I would say that I don't really write music to the movement, nor do I write it as wallpaper to just set a mood for the dance to move through. I'm in the middle somewhere. Oftentimes the dancer often will have an idea, come in with an idea of what the thematic material is for the piece dramaturgically for her or him. I say her first because I worked mostly with female choreographers, and my first experiences were with them. And if they had any vocabulary or idea or themes for the piece, they would show them to me physically. And oftentimes from the idea itself, things would spring. And other times from watching what they were doing, ideas would spring.
But rather than improvising to them, moving in workshop, I would tend to watch what they did and go off on my own, which is how I work best, and do my work at home and come back in. In those days, you couldn't exchange materials because we didn't have the live ability to do that with email and attachments and audio files and all that. Eventually, I could send videotapes through the mail. Uh, audio tapes, and they would send me video recordings,
Right.
VHS. But I would send sketches. What I did learn early on was not to get too far, that neither party should get too far ahead of the other. So I would always send ideas for that I had and give a choice. To say, here's what I could do to start this piece. I could also do this, or I could do this. And the dancer, if they had no priority or no favorite, I would begin with the one that spoke to me the most at that time for whatever reason. And then I would start to develop it, and I would try not to get too far of them. Now, scenes from a Mirage, from a musical standpoint, is inspired by the classic music score, which you have one theme, which keeps reappearing, with always the theme recognizable, but in a different stylistic or sonic context. And I can't remember specifically if Maureen was doing that with her movement, but I know that the music was further developed. I handed her almost a completed piece after she approved the initial idea, and then she choreographed that. She's very much a person who choreographs to the music very closely, and she loves having it to work with for a long time. And that's the way that one developed. So for me, it's always been a back and forth. And the reason that I gravitated towards dance, one is because first I was asked, and I found out that I loved it. I mean, when I moved to New York, I came here to be the great American composer.
Okay.
I was
Cool.
going to be, right, orchestral music, operas, ballets, all that. That was in my head, even though I had never written any of those. And of course,
Cool.
but my first work was in Off-Broadway, and I fell in love with it. I love the intimacy of it. One of the things I love about working with dancer is they're creating while you're creating, and that you didn't get in each other's way. There was sound and there was movement. And like, I have not done a lot of work with theater because involve theater demands that the words and the vision of the director are paramount,
Yeah.
and the music doesn't do the total work any favor if it calls too much attention to itself at a time when something else is supposed to be front and center. And I didn't have the personality for that. You have to have a certain personality to write film music or theater music, and I highly respect the people that can do it. And I also don't see an image or read words and immediately get ideas. With movement, I do get ideas when I see movement or when somebody talks to me about their idea for a piece. And oftentimes when they talk to me about that idea, they haven't even created any movement yet. So we begin with a blank slate. But I would say I think I wrote the piece for Maureen Fleming, whose name at that time was Maureen Williams, in around 85.
Okay.
And between then and early 2000, almost all of my commissions were coming through dance companies or dance individuals, because there was this wonderful program, Meet the Composer, that had a specific category for music for dance. And so it was a support system for one. I also loved that you could choose your own ensemble within a budget. You had a budget to hire musicians and play live and or record the score for touring. So I loved that I could record everything that I wrote. And I loved that you would play at least 3 performances and sometimes several weekends. It wasn't one rehearsal and one hit and on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I love that the musicians could really develop the score together. And the primary thing with dance, if you're writing anything metric, is your time. Is the most important thing for the dancer is that they can dance to it in a comfortable way for them. And you cannot just decide on your own what tempo you're going to. What's paramount for the dancer is the time, and even if it's not metric, then the clock time when a section is over and you change mood of the music, you have to be within a certain range, and know that if you're behind, you have to speed up and things like that. So there is that consideration, but I love that by and large, the sound is on its own.
Yes, yes.
So that's a very long answer to didn't address the question that you asked.
It very much did. Yeah.
That's all I got.
Fascinating, fascinating. I've been thinking a lot about movement and music, and how. Yeah. Anyways, I wanted to know the way you interact with it. Fascinating. Let's listen to something.
Okay.
How about something maybe from the list of your performances? Let's see. I'm thinking. Let's see. Do you have anything off the top of your head?
Clarissa.
Clarissa, yeah, absolutely. How about the version that's from the Accordions Rising video?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
This was written as a standalone music piece as part of a suite, not for movement of any kind. I was commissioned by a festival in Milan because Michael Cunningham was excuse me, let me think. Yes, Michael Cunningham was the guest author, and The Hours had been released, his novel The Hours, which I had read and loved. And the festival asked me if I would write a piece of music inspired by The Hours, and I chose the four main characters, and I wrote one portrait of each one, a musical portrait of each of the main characters. And this one is Clarissa.
Pardon me.
And has the kind of standard, but it's.
This will be perfect because after we listen to Clarissa, I can have you react to the interview at the beginning. That'll be fun.
Okay.
Not something I think that I'll live to see in my lifetime.
Uh-oh. What?
I hope it isn't, because
It's
like
just the end of the interview portion. I didn't have it totally queued up.
Okay.
Just what a beautiful time. Just small, sweet, gorgeous.
Well, that's just an excerpt from the piece.
Oh, it's
probably.
just an excerpt. Okay.
That's just an excerpt. It's funny watching the piece you were playing and the 10-minute lead up to the show, and this one make me very nostalgic because I played an accordion the Titano Corporation custom made for me. And I love the sound of the bass, and I love the red bellows. And it was stolen.
What?
Not that long after I received it.
No
Within a
shit.
year or two after I received it. It was stolen at Newark Airport on a return trip from LA. They probably thought they were getting camera equipment.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, you
And,
had it one of those big Pelican cases?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's a long story about it, but so I see that now, and the sound of the bass I just loved. It had this big Bion bass sound that just melted my heart, and beautiful chamber sound, and And the red bellows. I love red bellows. I'm a sucker for the red bellows.
What's the accordion that you're playing? Speaking of your favorite accordion sounds and the nostalgia that you get, on the Dave Douglas, and that's a nostalgic for me of your sound because it's not the first time that I heard your music, but it's the first time I got really into your playing, I think. And I don't know if this is the same accordion that you made the record with, but it sounds like it to me. I wonder if this is the same one, same accordion.
2022. I mean, the accordion was stolen in the early 2000s,
Okay,
so I don't remember.
I think this is 1998 is when this
Oh.
video is from.
No, then that accordion hadn't been made yet.
It hadn't been made yet. Okay,
No.
all right. This is, which one is this? See if I can.
I think
get
it's a Giulietti I'm playing
Is it?
in these.
It-
I wouldn't swear to anything.
the sound of the sounds like you have like a bassoon. Let's see. Let me get that beautiful intro.
Oh yeah.
Bassoon, I guess, but so woody. Were those your voicings, or were they
No.
given to you?
No, Dave writes everything out
He writes everything out. Cool.
except for the improvs, but that's
Yeah.
his.
Okay. Cool. I think you did a great job composing the accordion part.
Well, thank you for that.
I'm
I'll
sure
take
it's the way you played it. Yeah.
it. Yeah. that must be it. I can't see what accordion that was, but I
Oh,
I
I'm
don't even-
sorry. I moved
No,
us.
that's all right. They weren't. The music stand was always hiding it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so I can't tell. If it has the low E, then it is the. Well, the Giulietti had a low E on the right hand too, so I can't tell.
Who knows? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Fun. Okay, back to the other video. So for everybody.
Well, I mean,
Here we go. Isn't so uncanny?
accordion
Sorry.
is.
I thought I'd pause it. Isn't it so uncanny to like hear yourself back? You know, it's bizarre. Okay, we got a few more people. Yeah, Rusty Musette is here. I just want to throw out to everybody watching in the chat that if you have any questions that you'd like Guy to consider responding to, throw them in the chat and I'll bring them up to him and we'll see what we get from Guy.
Rusty Musette, I would like to rent that name from you, Rusty, if I might. That's pure, brilliant genius.
That's my chat guy. What can I say? Okay, so for everybody watching, I thought this would be really fun. This is the accordion player's perennial sort of thing, at least my generation. And your life, is the accordion's coming back, it's like that whole thing. Which it's like, accordion, you don't see one of those every day. Well, yes, I do actually. So this is great because when was Accordion's Rising? I meant to come up with this date. I don't remember the date that Accordion's Rising was put out there. 2010 maybe?
That sounds
Maybe
about
earlier.
right. It could have been later than that too.
It could have been later than that. Okay, this is uploaded in 2014. So at the very least, 10 years later, what would you have to say in response or to update this statement? So
An instrument that came out of popular culture, like the banjo. And as an instrument that came out of popular culture, it became associated with certain kinds of music in those cultures, the music of Lawrence Welk, the music of amateur hour sort of stuff like Dizzy Fingers and Beer Barrel Polka, and pieces that would be played like hundreds of times, and they were fast and furious, but actually not so difficult, but because they were fast and furious, everybody thought it was hard to do, and now it's become a sort of kitsch, for me anyway, and it doesn't interest me at all. I'd much rather hear a pianist play, jazz than hear an accordion play that kind of standard repertoire anymore. What I'm interested in about the accordion is what it can do that hasn't been done before, and that's to express the individual personality of the person who's playing it.
okay. So I would guess your sentiment didn't change, what you're interested in. But
No, my sentiment hasn't changed about that. there is a certain segment of the accordion community which is still playing those very same pieces, and I have no problem with them playing it. It's just I'm not interested in listening to those pieces again. I've moved on, and most of my life has been spent not in the accordion community, but in the community of new music and community of dancers and the community of improvisers and composers. So I think you can get in a bubble where it's the cynic doke, where you accept the small as being the whole, and or the whole as being the smaller thing, and it's not really. It's a bubble, and the bubble has stayed frozen in time since I was growing up in some segments, especially in this country. Um, I mean, the quality of players and virtuosity and interesting music coming out of Europe and Eastern Europe. I'm talking mainly now about written Western art music, is phenomenal, and the numbers are huge. And but even within that, each culture has its own stereotypes it's trying to deal with. I mean, if you're French, you're still dealing with the musette tradition, and if you're Belgian, you're dealing with that too. If you're Slovenian, my friend Bratko Bibic, he's dealing with the Oberkreutzer, I think it is. It's the folk music of that country, which is what people think of when they think of the accordion there, and Austria and Germany, and so every country has some culture with of the instrument. Not every country, but most countries, and anyone not doing that does still have a remnant of that. I just think that here it's a larger shadow than anywhere else because we haven't developed a lot of alternatives here, whereas in most European countries and Eastern European countries and Russia and Japan, you can study the accordion in conservatories and go another direction with it. But here, the state of the accordion for like conservatory or music school study, in terms of sheer numbers, is if anything less than it was when I was looking to go to college in 1965. So when I was looking to go to college in 65 for music, at first I thought I would be an accordion major, and there were a couple of places in the United States, Lamont School of Music in Denver and University of Missouri at Kansas City, and then in Toronto with the University of Toronto, Joe Massarolo was teaching in the Royal Conservatory there. I thought seriously about going to Toronto, but I didn't want to be that far from home and also be an expat. I just didn't. I had never lived anywhere but near home, and I just didn't feel comfortable going that far away. But a lot of the players who came through that program eventually had a huge impact on me, and some of them I'm friends with until this day.
Like whom?
John Torcello is a wonderful free bass accordion player in Los Angeles, plays with the LA Philharmonic whenever they need an accordion player, and does lots of other things. And he released an album on Giulio Giulietti's Neophonic label. Giulietti was an accordion manufacturer, and I played his instruments for years and years and years. And as a way to promote his instrument, he produced recordings of some of his finest artists, and John was one of them. And Joseph Natoli was another accordionist composer, phenomenal player, still is a phenomenal player. And Richard Romiti was another one. And Randy Arase or I don't know how to say his name, Arasi, was a jazz player, was a phenomenal player as well. And James Nightingale, another one from LA. And I also had heard the thing these people all have in common is they play the free bass, which we haven't talked about at all. And if you're not an accordion player, you wouldn't know what that is, but it's a bass system where you have all single notes for 4.5 octaves instead of a diatonic system with bass and chord notes arranged in a circle of fifths, preset chords, I mean. And my first exposure to them was hearing Steve Domingo in around the mid-'60s and William Cosby. Steve Domingo ended up being invited to play a Chopin piano concerto on Leonard Bernstein's Young People's Concert.
Wow.
Sometime in the late 60s or so. And that was like, we all thought that was going to open the doors for the players, but that was like it. That was
Shit.
it. what all of the people that I just named have in common is that there was no outlets for them once they got out of college. So they, I think without exception, went into other professions. Um, and then late in life, after they had done their whole working life, you know, in some other field, came back to playing the instrument in their, you know, in their 60s, and were as were as good. It's just like they took a put it on pause, and then they took up right where they left off, which makes me so jealous. It means they had such a solid grounding in technique, you know, that it's just like, oh, pause,
Yeah.
40 years, then start again. And
Right.
they were, so they're all, some of them have passed away. William Cosby and Steve Domenico both passed away. But Joseph Natoli, very active in the accordion world. John Torcello, very active in the freelance world. So that I heard free bass accordion first in the mid to late 60s, and then started playing one when I was 20 years old.
Wow.
I started pretty much had to teach myself. My teacher didn't know how to play, but he had some books, some primers that helped me get started. But that really opened up my ears, and my first I got into it because I wanted to learn how to play the music that was being written for that or being transcribed for that. But then what it really opened up an avenue for me as a composer. Once I started concentrating on being a composer, it opened up a whole new avenue of directions that I could go with counterpoint and voicings and overlapping ranges and having the bass play higher than the right hand, for example.
Yes.
So it was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life, was deciding to learn how to play that.
That's so cool. You know what I have here? Did you ever hear of this guy? Let's see. The
Yes.
The Machino system.
Yes.
Yes.
I am not familiar with it, but when I remember when I was in the Buffalo Accordion Convention a few years ago, somebody was demonstrating it in the lobby.
Yeah. It's probably George
was-
Secor.
Yes, it was
Yeah.
him.
Fascinating guy. Yeah.
So I know about it, but I don't really know it. You I know, are a devotee, right, of that system.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
so I don't know anything about it whatsoever.
Yeah. It's a chromatic bass set up in 4 instead of 3, and so you get major thirds, and every note is in 2 places, and things are closer together, and you have everything. You have fifths and fourths, and you have diagonals, or you have chromatic. I like it. Yeah.
Okay, we're deep in the nerd weeds now, so.
Well, this is accordion stream, so it's only
is.
accordion people watching, probably. Yeah.
Right.
And I get European people on here too, which is cool because it's not, it's a perfect time for them,
Yes.
which is fun. The more people, in fact, going over to cinema, I've met people and then cinema will share the link sometimes too, so that's nice. Yeah. Yeah. The freebase. It's interesting. I've been doing some stuff with Michael Bridge and ATG. So like we started an accordion teachers online get together to try to connect a community. And I'm hanging out more, or not hanging out, but being more in front of Joan Cochran Summers than I ever have before. And pretty much every time I see her, she says, "And we gotta play the freebase," which is, I think, a nice, a nice call to arms, I suppose. I certainly love it. I wish the one that I have converted, because there are many aspects of what the Stradella can do as an oompa machine that in my abilities, the freebase can't really do with the same feeling, at least the way I have it.
Yeah, that's why I play a converter as my main instrument. I do have dedicated standard bass instrument, but I also have a converter because when I toured, I couldn't tour with 2 instruments. I wanted to be able to go back and forth. I mean, as a composer, I've written a substantial body of music for each of those systems.
Yeah.
And whenever I would go on tour with my dedicated free bass instrument before I had a converter, I felt like I was going out on the road with one half of my suitcase packed, you know.
Yes.
And I felt that some of my best work I couldn't play. I couldn't play because I didn't have the toolkit for it. I didn't have the instrument with me. So I mean, there is definitely a compromise with any instrument that you decide to play. You play a converter, you sacrifice weight, you gain weight. Your instrument gains weight. The left-hand side of the instrument is much heavier, and as you get older, that gets more and more difficult. It's based on a different low note than the standard bass accordion is, so all of the chord inversions in the chords is different than they are on the standard 120 bass accordion that I grew up with, and so everything that you used to play doesn't really work like that if you're playing the classical pieces from that era. If you're playing folk music, yes, it will work because the chords fly fast, they fly past so fast. Fly by so fast.
Now I see where your song titles come from.
Just from stumbling over words.
This is just the way you think.
That's true. And but I know overall I'm glad. And now that I'm mainly just recording at home or making videos at home, I can grab any accordion on the shelf that's right for a particular piece. And I have two standard bass accordions which have different tunings. I have an old Sonola from the 60s which has a wonderful,
oh wow,
not musette, but wetter than I'm used to playing, but just a beautiful, deep, gorgeous, warm sound. And then I have a beautiful Siwa and Fili.
Oh yeah.
That is a beautiful, more classical sound. A little bit of bite on the middle reed. I have one tune just a slightly higher than the other to give it a little bit of bite. I always like that as opposed to just two middle reeds tuned at mul 440.
Yeah.
And then I have the converter bass, which I love the bass sound of it. It has a bion switch too, so you can double the lower octave. But I have a non-chamber accordion for weight purposes, so the right-hand sound is not nearly as warm or as I was used to on the old instrument, but they're just too big for me. They're like tanks, you know. So I went from kind of a Sherman tank to a Jeep. You know, it's still big, but it doesn't need 8 tires anymore. So anyway, like I said, compromises. Everything is a compromise. You choose an instrument either for the work that you do the most, or you choose one. You try to have more than one if you can afford it. Over time, I've been able to build up a garage, a bookcase full of them, but that took me 40 years with a lot of trade-ins.
Yes, I hear that. Well, can we transition this talk on the different types of accordions, I don't know, somehow into listening to another piece by you?
Of course,
Soft Landing, Spin Cycle, Music of the Chants, Swan and the Vulture, 11 Large Lobsters, C&M Waltz, and Bove Psalm, to jog your memory.
Any embarrassment of non-riches, I would say. So you take your choice.
Okay.
I mean, why not play a Stradella piece since the free bass is what we've been listening to now? Let's take Soft Landing.
Soft Landing, okay.
Now, this is an example. I can get into composition now here for a minute, which is that the first music I heard as a young adult, which made me want to be a composer, was minimalism, the music of Steve Reich and Philip Glass specifically, and Pauline Oliveros' drone music. It was the first music that made me feel that I could have a voice in writing, as a creative voice in music. After a while, I did not find what I felt was an individual style within that. I felt it was too derivative. And through working with dance, then I started going back to some of the social dance forms that I played as a kid. And that's where getting back to the Stradella bass came in. Because as you mentioned, there's certain things that the standard or Stradella bass can do much better than the free bass, and vice versa. So Soft Landing, exemplifies one aspect of minimalism in that nothing very complicated happens in either the right hand or the left hand, but together they're very difficult to play. It's coordination wise, it can be very difficult. Uh, both hands are in 9/8, but one of them is divided 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And the right hand is divided into 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and it's all dotted notes. So it's like floating over the other texture. It's one of the reasons I call it soft landing, because of all the plane trips. You always hope that when you touch down, it's going to be a soft landing, but it's kind of the clouds above the moving landscape, speaking of a metaphor. But um, I think you'll hear it. You can just concentrate on the left hand and you'll hear that bass pattern of 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. And then you'll listen to the right hand. You're not sure what's going on, but it's just all notes of the same duration. Some of them are tied over to form a longer one, but together they create a kind of complexity. And really the model for that was Steve Reich's Come Out, which was
Yes.
early tape pieces in which he just took the phrase come out to show them, come out to show them, and then put another track on top of it was slightly out of phase, and then just move it more and more out of phase until all that was left at the end was a series of sibilants and syllables repeated over and over, and just created a sonic swirl, and any meaning to the words was gone, but you had a really rich texture without any piece of new material ever being introduced. And I thought that was brilliant. From that one phrase, an entire piece was built. And so this too, very simple. The 9/8 again in one subdivision in one hand and a different subdivision in the other, and let them coexist. And it's also not conceptual, because I think it's very sensual. If it only works on a conceptual level, I'm not interested in it. To me, it has to be either sensual or moving, or both of those, or emotionally touching, and hopefully it is.
Oh, sorry. I had muted this tab. Here we go. Beautiful guy. Such a cool lope too. All right. Let's listen to some more because we've done a lot of talking. Let's see. Oh, before I forget, yeah, why don't I find the Mr. Rogers? Do you want to? Let's see. While I'm pulling it up, how did you get the gig?
I think this was around 1988. I got a phone call from someone who said, "Hi, my name is so and so, and I'm calling from the neighborhood. Would you like to be a guest?" Wondering, what?
Well, I
And,
assume everybody over there. Yeah.
I said, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. And she said, oh, this is Family Communications. We produce the Mr. Rogers Show. We would like to have you come on and be a musical guest. Now, I knew the Mr. Rogers Show because I'm from Pittsburgh, and that's where it was produced, and it was a local show before it
No
became
kidding.
syndicated. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And so I knew about it. I didn't grow up with it because it pretty much post-dated my most youthful years. But I knew about it. My accordion teacher always recommended that I listen to it as a teenager and even later because there was a jazz trio, which was just a phenomenal trio of piano and guitar.
That pianist, ridiculous.
And piano, yeah.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Fantastic players. And they were so great when I was playing on the show because I was playing Scenes from a Mirage, in the free bass. And afterwards, the pianist came up and Johnny Costa, and he said, "I don't know how you were doing that. It was so beautiful." So that's how I got the gig.
Cool.
And one of the most beautiful things about it, and I love this so much, is that when I was there, they handed me a script. And there's a little dialogue about welcome to the neighborhood, and Mr. Klucevsek is one of the finest accordionists in the neighborhood. Which I thought, okay, I'll take that.
Cool. Yeah.
And then at one point, near the end of the script, it said, "Mr. Rogers, I'm going to have to leave now because I have to have some teaching. I have some lessons to give." And so, it was the associate producer who brought that script over to me, and I said, "I wonder if they could change this because I really don't teach. I make a living as a freelance. Could we change it somehow to reflect that? Because I think it would be important for kids to know that you can make a life as a musician." Notice I didn't say a living; I said a life.
Yes.
And so she took it back to Fred Rogers, and he had scratched out that, and she brought it back to me, and it says, "I must leave to practice for a concert I have coming up," or something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that was just so beautiful. And I just think it was one of the best shows ever. I mean, it really respected children. It didn't talk down to them. It dealt with some really heavy subjects, divorce and some national tragedies. And the scripts are so smart. And, he did everything. He was involved in the puppet making and manipulating the puppets. And he wrote some of the music. And he wrote the text. It's just mind-boggling, So what a wonderful treasure for kids, Until Sesame Street came along, there was really nothing of that quality for them, really educational program for them that was not in any way pandering to them, but working towards their best instincts and to educate and celebrate them at the same time. So I was honored so much, and I can't tell you how many times over the years I've played a concert and somebody said I started playing when I saw you play on that show.
Wow.
Or somebody will say, "My child started playing once they saw you, and now my grandchild started."
That's so cool.
Playing when you and in essence, and for me, it was a wonderful opportunity to return the favor that television had done for me because I started playing.
Yes.
When I heard it, played on television and saw it played on television in a very different context. I'll give you that. But it was seeing it that made me and many, many hundreds and thousands of others, seeing Dick Contino on television was the start. And many of us went off in other directions after that. But that's what brought it to our attention to begin with. So for that alone, I mean, eternally grateful to him and to his memory.
To Dick Contino?
Yeah,
yeah.
Without him, I probably wouldn't have started playing.
Yeah. Okay. I'll hit play on the Mr. Rogers. I have a great follow-up after we're done with this one.
Oh, good.
A little
Remember it.
Could I touch that?
Sure.
Oh, so you can change it
You can change the color.
by pressing these buttons. When did you start to play the accordion?
I started when I was 6 years old. I saw one on television, on a program much like this, and told my dad that that's what I wanted to do.
And so you didn't start to play a big one like this, did you?
No, I started with a tiny little, called a 12-bass accordion. It's only about this big.
And you played it and played it.
Played it, and then I got bigger, and so my accordion got bigger, and now
I mean, you had to buy a bigger accordion.
We had to keep getting a bigger one until we got to a full size. This is called a full-size accordion, an adult accordion.
I see. And did you ever express your feelings with your accordion? I mean, when you were sad or angry or happy, did you ever play the way you felt?
Sure, that's one of the great things about it. Sometimes you can't tell somebody how you feel, but when you're alone, you can express it through your instrument. If I was sad, or if I was feeling angry, I might do something like. Other times, I might be feeling on top of the world.
Oh, that's fun. I would like very much to hear something. I know that you write music.
Yes, I do.
You compose it. And I would like to hear something that you have written yourself.
That would be fun, wonderful. When I was growing up, there weren't people who were writing much music for accordion, but I had a teacher who really encouraged me and said, create your own. If there's no music there, then you make the music yourself and play that.
I'm going to pause that. Who was that teacher? What a great path to lead you down.
That was my composition teacher at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, Robert Burnett. God bless his heart.
Amazing.
It reminds me of Nadia Boulanger telling
Yes.
Astor Piazzolla,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Tango is where your heart
Yes,
is. Play.
this is it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the best advice I ever received in my life.
That's amazing. Okay, I'll hit play again.
And that's what I've been doing. And I would like to play a little part of a piece called Scenes from a Mirage. A mirage is something that you see that's not really there. It's something that you see in your mind, in your imagination.
Oh, we like to think about imagination here. We'll try to think
do.
of what you might be thinking of.
Okay.
Oh, so many images. I was just thinking of people walking along looking for one another.
I think when I wrote of it, I was thinking of people riding through a desert and they would see things through this kind of mist of sand. But other people see different things because we all have different experiences.
Yeah. You must have had some fine teachers.
I really did. I had an accordion teacher who taught me that you can do more with the accordion than people tell you that you normally can. And I was very pleased about that, and it's made a big difference to me.
Well, you certainly give a lot of pleasure to a lot of people.
Well, thank you, and it does a lot for me too. But you know, Fred, it's a great pleasure visiting the neighborhood, but I really have to go because I have a concert and I still have to practice some more for it.
You practice every day?
I try to, especially when I have a concert.
Well, thank you for coming by.
Thank you for having me in the neighborhood.
Just so beautiful. Wow.
I
So cool.
love seeing that again. A television. So I saw Dick Contino in a program much like this one.
Yes.
Not really, but
Not
I
really.
was improvising. What could I say? The boy was nervous.
Yeah, it works.
Oh, that was beautiful. I love seeing that again.
Speaking of improvising, okay, I have two questions in my head, but this one is the ideal lead-in. So, I do a lot of improvising, and my sort of tradition of music is a lot in the ways of learning jazz tunes, learning the skills for jazz, which is improvisation, which is a vocabulary, and a language, and all the rhythms and stuff that goes in. It's not different than learning to play Irish music or any other music that you Anyways, your tradition, it seems to me, and feel free to change what I'm about to say, but is very much based on you being a composer. And it seems to me that the skill sets are nearly similar. They're not exactly the same. But in order to compose, you have to improvise. It's right?
Well, my late friend Pauline Oliveros said something along the lines of improvising is composing in real time, and composing is slowed down improvising. And that's the best definition
Cool.
I've ever heard of that. The thing is that in improvising, there are no retakes,
Yes.
except if you're making a recording, you can do another solo. But
Yes. Well, there's the jazz musicians thing. You're only as good as your last solo.
Exactly. That early on, I kind of knew that was not my world. As a creative artist, I was interested in the ability to play the same phrase over and over and over in my workshop until I got it to tell me what the next phrase was, like a writer does. Although some writers write more stream of consciousness, but a lot of writers, and even if they do, then they go back and edit the daylights out of it, But I like to do my creative work in private, and then when I present it to the public, my creative work, for the most part, is done, and now I'm sharing with you what I found, like an author would a book, although I'm performing it in real time. I had a thought to follow this up with. Now I can write pieces that are influenced by standards, and I have written pieces over the years. The piece that I wrote for you for my vignettes collection,
Yes.
Gringo Star.
I should get the book. Here, it's over here on the shelf, but I'll still listen to you. Keep talking.
Okay. Yeah, Gringo Star is definitely written in the style of a slow kind of country blues or Texas swing kind of blues, and Dallas was kind enough to record it for the demo CD that came with the book. So the thing is that even in those kind of pieces, what's on the page is my creative part. But when I give it to other people, those kinds of pieces to other people, or if I write those kind of pieces with an ensemble, which I'm doing a lot of right now, I'm writing a lot of music for a quartet, I give them room to do what they love to do, which is to improvise. And so they're become creative partners with me in it as well. And I almost never improvise in my own tunes for ensemble. I give them the room to do that, and if somebody were to come up to me and afterwards and say, why didn't you improvise more? I would say, what you heard that wasn't being improvised was my creative input to the piece.
Yes.
You know, it's a weird position to put yourself in. But then when you think of some of the big bands, if you think of Ellington, I mean, he didn't play a lot of piano solos.
No.
And he's a beautiful, beautiful piano player, but he never would take like a 10-minute solo like he might give to Paul Gonsalves, you know, if he was going really good for chorus after chorus after chorus, you know, because his creative work was the tune that he came up and the arrangement that he came up with. And same with Count Basie, you know. So I think of it more like that. Because if I have players who can do that, and I love working with creative musicians, that's the thing. I also love working with classical musicians who are really intent on realizing what's on the page and making it sound even better because they know how to play their instrument better than I know how to play their instrument, and they bring a lot to it, their own suggestions, especially when you work with people over a long time, like the relationship I have with Alan Byrne on accordion and piano, or with Todd Reynolds on violin. You know, they're adding as much to the pieces as I am, even when they're not improvising. So yeah, I never got into, I don't know jazz chord changes. In fact, when I write pieces with complex chords that I do the voicings on accordion, and then I have to create a chorus for the horn player to improvise in, I have to have them or Finale software analyze the chord for me, because if it gets beyond a seventh or a ninth, I'm out. Especially if it's like,
Well,
you know, when I start to see things like sharp 5, flat 7, augmented 11th, add 3 or so, add 2
Yes.
or something. It's like, to me, it's like a stop sign. It's like, okay, stop, jazz harmonic analysis time. And you know, and like somebody else that, you know, is not used to reading complex music and they're playing in 3/4 for 5 minutes, and all of a sudden a 3/8 measure comes up. It's the same stop sign for them, you know. So my musical stop sign is chord symbols that go beyond the basic ones. But jazz players know what to do anyway, and if you keep the accompaniment down to simple chords, it gives them more room to explore the upper partials of a harmony anyway, because that's part of their brilliance. So
yeah.
yeah.
It's wonderful, and you touched on something that I was going to ask you about anyway, which is your work with legendary American jazz musicians. To name just a couple: John Zorn, Bill Frisell, Don Byron. I know that that's just a few, and there are many, many more. But and I've checked, you know, all the. I love your music, and it seems like you're, you know, it's just fun to well, in this context, which is just 2 hours of hanging out with Guy and listening to Guy music and Guy ideas, but just the well, it's music. It doesn't really have borders, right? And you're living in New York City, yeah, and available to hang out with these musicians and network and meet people, and this friend leads to that thing, and then, you know, and part of the Knitting Factory scene and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that all started in the mid 80s for me. And the first musician that I met from that scene was John Zorn. I actually met him in 1984 in this festival which used to move around the country in a different place each year, called New Music America. 1984, it was in Hartford, Connecticut, and John Zorn was doing one of his game pieces at the time, which pieces where everything is improvised, but the ensemble makes all the decisions within the ensemble. But there's a set of instructions, like it can be as simple as play louder, play softer, play as loud as you can, play as soft as you can, play as fast as you can, take a solo above everything else, or things like that. And there's cued in different ways within the ensemble by like a red card or whatever. And then there's somebody, it's not called a conductor, I forget what the prompter. Bobby Previtt was the prompter on Cobra, which is the piece I was in. And they let you know what somebody has called. Like, say 3 people put up their hand, you point to one person. And my funniest and fondest memory is that we were playing something, the full ensemble, everybody playing like about as loud as you could possibly. And that's why probably I lost most of my upper partials, was right at that moment. And then somebody held up the card. I think it was Anthony Coleman, because only if he would think of this. And the instruction was play louder.
Oh, shit.
And, you know, we did. So that was like, I had been playing a lot with Relash in those days
Yeah.
in Philadelphia, and we had one kind of ensemble improvisation, which was what we used to call performer choice kind of improvisation, like with Terry Riley's In C, where all of the melodic information is supplied, but the rate at which the individual performer moves from one to the other is left up to them. And then there's a sense of community too, because you don't want to get too far ahead or too far behind, because you want to keep a sense of the group moving together, but not in lockstep. And it's a very beautiful social idea too. Fred Jevsky's Coming Together is like that. And we did a beautiful piece by Dan Good called Wind Symphony, which is kind of the anarchist version of In C, because no pitches are designated, just rhythms. So it's very wonderfully noisy. And that's also, we did a piece of Pauline Oliveros's called The Well and The Gentle. And that was one kind of improvisation with an ensemble which I really, really liked. And Zorn introduced me to a different kind of improvisation, which is where all of the decisions were being made within the ensemble by a single person, but everyone else had to abide by that decision once it was relayed to the rest of the people in the ensemble. And it was much more about everybody was inventing their own vocabulary. That's
Yes.
the thing too,
Yeah.
because it's some, like one of the instructions was play a quote from a music score or something like that.
Ah, yeah, fun.
And so everyone, and they'd point at a certain person, like I would indicate that, and then point at Anthony Coleman,
Yes.
and he would play like something from a movie score. If they pointed at me, I used to play like something from Nina Rota scores.
Yes.
You know, Amarcord. I played this theme from Amarcord or
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that. And so he had a very specific way of he had a way at that time with the game pieces of being able to incorporate anyone's vocabulary into those pieces, whether you're a rock musician, whether you're a jazz musician, a free improviser, classical musician, as long as you could create your own sounds and let yourself be that free, you could be part of that piece. So, you know, since then, he's gone on to become a composer who also writes pieces that are very specific, like for string quartet or piano solo or whatever. But those particular set of pieces could have been played with anyone by any kind of background. And the guitar section in that piece was Ardo Lindsay,
Oh, wow. I love that
Bill
guy.
Frisell, Elliott Sharp. So that's where I
Holy
met Bill
crap.
Frisell. That's where Zorn called it the world's greatest guitar section.
Yes.
And it seems to me there was one more. I want to say Fred Frith, but I don't think he was in that band. But Fred, if you were, I'm sorry. And if it was somebody else, I'm also sorry. So that's where I met Bill. And I don't know how many years later that he was putting together To Have a Little Faith album, and he invited me to join the band for that with Don Byron and Joey Barron on drums and Kermit Driscoll on bass. And that fit me very well because it was all cover songs, and it was there was some Aaron Copland in there, Billy the Kid Suite, it's something I knew very well. I think there was a Cage piece in there. No, there was a Charles Ives piece, which I also knew. There was a John Philip Sousa piece, which I knew very well. Then there was Bob Dylan. It was really pieces from the American.
I can show that because that's on YouTube. We can actually hear the Poverty with you, which I have
Oh,
queued
you know,
up.
this is Naked. This is something else.
This is something
This
else.
is not. Yeah, this is well, not Naked City. I'm not in Naked City.
This says that you are on Poverty. This Ennio
Well,
Morricone.
then that is
Because
is
you were
the
playing after
Ennio
them.
Morricone album, but that's not Frisell.
Aha. Okay.
Frisell's
Okay.
face album was called Have a Little Faith.
Got it. Well, I'll pull up the
I mean, it's
album art for
possible
that.
that he plays on that track. If
He,
you had
he's listed in the credits here. I just confused it because I'm an airhead
Oh, that's-
and it's
no,
all
no,
film
no.
score. It's many film scores.
Yeah. It's okay, no problem. But so I fit right into that project, and that was a very specific project. Dave Douglas, I met Dave Douglas because Kenny Wallison, a wonderful drummer, lived in Red Hook in the late 90s, and he had a series in his loft there, and I played solo there. And afterwards,
Cool.
this gentleman came up and introduced himself to me and said, "Hi, I'm Dave Douglas. I'm a trumpet player. I'd love to do something, a duo thing with you."
Cool.
And I said, "Oh, that sounds great. Let's try that." And we made a record for
You did?
Winter and Winter.
I don't know this duo record.
Well, I don't think we made a duo record. You know what it is? We started playing the duos, and then some of those duos ended up on the
Cool.
Charms of the Night Sky album. And then the duo grew in for touring, grew into a quartet, and then we recorded. So there's a combination of duets and full band pieces for that album. And that was a kind of chamber jazz, and I fit into that because most of the heavy lifting, improvising wise, went to Mark Feldman on violin and to Dave on
And
trumpet.
Dave, yeah.
And so he knew how to use the people in the band, and he knew that I was best at something written or something textural that I could act as a kind of a glue to hold the whole band together. And I was kind of the rhythm instrument as well. Greg was the bass, and I was the rhythm instrument. You know.
Yeah.
And there was no because there was no drums.
It's
in
cool
the
that
band.
it's so cool that there's no drums.
Yeah, I love it.
yeah.
Chamber jazz is the way I think of it. You know.
Yes. What'd you call it? Super jazz?
Chamber
jazz. Chamber jazz. Yeah.
Not chamber pot jazz. Chamber jazz. Sorry, Dave. The joke's there. I'm going to take it.
Maybe we can. What about here's a John Zorn thing I found. Just to put a picture to whatever it's worth 1,000 words. If I can find this place, you're on this one. Which one? You're on Child at Heart with Bill Frisell. No, not John Zorn. Bill Frisell, Don Byron, you, Kermit Driscoll. Maybe we can just hear a little bit of this. I won't play the whole thing. Yeah, I can hear you in there. Don Byron. Okay, and I'll pause it just because not enough Guy on that in that moment.
To answer your question, that's a Giulietti accordion. That's
That
the one
is.
I had before the Tata. I could tell by the double rank of register switches.
Yeah. What was the instrument you were playing on the Mr. Rogers show? That was so.
That was
a
also
Giulietti.
the Giulietti.
The grill was gorgeous.
That was custom made. There was an artist named Morgan, whose last name I can't remember, who painted a map of Yugoslavia on the grill because I'm
Whoa.
Slovenian.
Oh, that's
or
so
Slovenian
cool.
American. Yeah.
That's so cool. Hey, we have a message from the chat. This is D-Stet Zone, who I know is over in Berlin. He says, I know this is a bit off topic, but are there any plans to reunite the accordion tribe again?
No. For multiple reasons. One is that Lars Homer passed away a long time ago, and it was never the same without him because the book was probably at least 40% of his tunes. And whenever we got together without him afterwards, either as a quartet or we added a guest, when we was a quartet, all I could think of was the empty chair, and it was too emotionally difficult for me. And we had some wonderful guests along the way, but it just never felt the same. And the other thing is that a number of us in the group are much older now. We have health issues. I wouldn't be able to tour with him anymore. They have done a couple of tours with Otto Lechner wrote me once and asked if it was okay. They were invited to play in a festival. This is probably going back 12 years or so, 15 years ago. And he asked me, invited to do it, and I said, I can't do it. I'm just not able to do it. And he said, would you mind if we used the name and invited some young players to fill your and Lars' places? I said, absolutely not, because the idea of the band was mine. The title of the band was Bratko Bibic's, but the idea for it was mine. I said, no, by all means, it'd be great to carry on the tradition. And they did find two young players, Paul Schubert from Austria, and his duo partner Johannes Munzer, and they're beautiful. They have a beautiful duo, and they also have a trio with a saxophone player. And they were real fans of the accordion tribe. They used to they had all our records, and they used to come to every concerts anytime we played anywhere near Vienna,
Cool.
where they were based. And they did a couple of concerts as the Accordion Tribe with those two filling the places of me and Laura's. And they did a beautiful job. They bring their own thing to it and some of their own music as well. But by and large, no, it's an archival project at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Accordion Tribe. Which turned me on to Maria Kalaniemi, which she's in my top whatever. Oh my God. Unbelievable.
Mine too. She's a beautiful player.
Yeah.
And beautiful
that guy,
singer.
Timo Alikotila. I want to see that guy someday in person too. The two of them together, that's my favorite stuff of Maria's, is when the two of them, like she has all those Aldergaz records, a couple of those, and I think Timo is doing the arrangements according to the liner notes.
Mm-hmm.
So fucking cool.
But the duo with harmonium and accordion with him,
yes,
it's such an unlikely combination that you would never think of, but it's just so perfect.
Yes.
And yeah, I
well,
love
you
it.
put that couch music in there, which also has harmonium. So I guess that's like a Finnish thing, is to have, as harmonium is also a folk instrument. Let's listen to some of that. What do you think?
Of what? Sorry.
Of
Maria's.
Yeah. The couch. Let's see. Here it is.
Try to pick something at least 3 minutes because I'm going to take a informal break for a second.
Perfect. You got it. This is 4 minutes 10 seconds.
You got this, Dallas.
Släcka lågan som ner från klara himlen kom medan solen glödde hett. Många irrblås möter man på sin väg som tjursakan. Blixten sker på annat sätt. Lilja blomma vitare än snön. Jag plockade dig, tänkte jag i lönn. Men minnet som du gav mig, det kan inte jag någonsin vara utan min vän. Lilja blomma, anar du det här? Att du är den jag evigt håller kär. Att ingen här i världen betyder så mycket som du. Får jag säga det nu? Vem kan släcka lågan som solen glödde hett. Många irrbloss möter man på sin väg som tjusa kan. Blixten sker på annat sätt.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Stunning.
Guy, you put that on the list. That was a Guy pick. When I emailed Guy to set this up, you know, I have my kind of things and said, well, maybe we could talk about, you know, who are some of your favorite, not your favorites, but who are people that you enjoy, you know, influences. Yeah.
Well, there's two things. There's people I enjoy and influences, because some of the people I really enjoy are not necessarily influences, and sometimes it goes the other way actually,
Yeah.
because they're much younger than me, and the people who influenced me, or many of them are not here anymore, or some of them have been dead for 100 years. So let's see. I mean, what got me interested in playing new music on the accordion is when I first heard Mogens Ellegaard, who was a Danish player, probably in the late 60s, early 70s, and other European players like Hugo Note and Stefan Husong and Teodoro Anzalati, all of them doing contemporary music, much of it commissioned. And the Americans that I mentioned earlier,
And
Rocello and Natoli.
And yesterday when we were working out the tech, I brought up Stan Darrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stan Darrow has a studio in Westmont, New Jersey, near Camden, which, as you mentioned, it was just regular people playing very avant-garde music. And
Yes, still.
Stan would tour in Europe once a year, and he would bring back a lot of literature from there. And it was he that introduced me to the whole European avant-garde accordion repertoire, none of which I knew, and a lot of it I learned to play. And I loved the music, actually, especially Per Norgard's Anatomic Safari, which is one of the classics of the piece. I played that a lot, and I also played Arnie Nordheim's Dinosaurs for accordion and tape quite a bit. I played the pieces of Ole Schmidt's toccatas, or what were they? I think they were toccatas. It's been a while now, but Stan, yeah, he was doing all these wonderful things there, and introducing his students to that repertoire. And it was in that period also that I got involved with the Philadelphia Composers Forum, and eventually Relâche, where I worked with them for 10 years. About 8 of those or more were after I'd already moved to New York, but I would travel back to work with them and as a performer.
Classic Philly story.
Yeah, exactly. Not enough work in Philly to keep you going full time, but still enough there that you want to, quality work that you want to go back and keep it going. And
always from the heart. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he was doing a great thing, and eventually, year after year, he would try to get the accordion accepted into Glassboro State College, which is now called Rowan, because somebody named Rowan donated $1 gazillion. So, okay, we'll change the name. And he did eventually get it in, and I was hired to teach accordion there. So from 72 through 76, before I moved to New York, I was teaching accordion there, and eventually I would teach music theory classes as well when somebody would take a sabbatical. So and I would teach composition students too. I was full time for either one semester or 1 year at one point, and that's where I met Joel Thoman, the Philadelphia Composers Forum, and got involved with them, and did a lot of work in Philly as well. But yeah, Stan Darrow had an amazing place, and his widow Joanne Darrow is still doing wonderful things there, and
yes,
the tradition continues.
Absolutely. It's like the Library of Alexandria over there, man. Has everything that they ever had, pretty much, and it's all filed now.
The library.
Yeah, they have stuff that probably doesn't exist anywhere else. You know, for that period of music, for accordion, they've got hard copies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No,
And
it's a
for
great
the
resource.
for the Quint system also, they probably have more than anybody else, I would think. But they're an unsung hero. They also must be the longest running accordion school in the country. I can't.
That I don't know.
I mean, I can't prove it, but can anybody name another one?
Well, the thing is that there was somebody there to take it over. Joanne was there to take it over because,
Yes.
I mean, when I was growing up, there were so many hundreds of accordion studios all over the country. But by the time the person who founded the studio retired, the accordion was not popular enough anymore to sustain an accordion-only studio. So normally those studios just went out of business, or they became music studios which taught all kind of instruments. You know.
Yes.
I know the Bussos had a long practice here in Staten Island, and eventually theirs turned into a full, all instrumental, or at least piano and accordion. I don't know if there were other instruments, so they managed to keep theirs going for quite a while too, but with fewer accordion students than they would have had during the real heyday of the instrument. But
it's fascinating because this also gets into the what I call the accordion Middle Ages. Which you are one of the very few people who you mentioned this earlier when talking about Stephen Domenko and et al. And what I assume is, and I think it's also, I guess this is some editorializing and gossiping, but I think that there is post-traumatic stress there. I think that there's a lot of emotional trauma, I think, maybe for your generation, or maybe not for you, because I won't speak for you, but to be an intrepid young artist who is in love with the accordion, and that's your thing, and then there you've matriculated through your thing, and you're ready to be whatever you're going to be, a teacher, a performer, whatever, and then boom, your culture wants to hear nothing. They don't want to hear you do your thing at all. There's no work. Everyone's turned their back on you. That must be profoundly shitty, you know?
well, I think that didn't happen to me.
Yes, it didn't happen to you. Exactly.
Well, it didn't happen to me because I wasn't trying to make a living. I wasn't trying to make it solely within the accordion world or solely within the accordion music, orchestra, chamber. I went a different path, and because I was a composer.
Yes.
So, I mean, writing for dance, it didn't really matter what my instrument was, although sometimes, of course, they wanted the accordion because the particular piece they were working on called for something like that, but not always. I could have been a pianist maybe and still be doing that, but I was a composer. At a certain point, I like to say that up to the mid 80s, I was a performer composer, and from the mid 80s on, I became a composer performer. And at some point in the early 2000s or so, I didn't want to play chamber music anymore. I didn't like playing a lot of pieces on very short rehearsal for very little money for one performance that was usually second rate because we didn't have enough time to put a very complicated piece together. And frankly, a lot of it I didn't like. And I felt like I was just, my heart wasn't in it anymore. And at that point, I decided just to focus on composing and let come what may. But on the other hand, I had a support system. My wife has been the one with a full-time job. My dear wife Jan, for 53 years, has had a day job or been going to school to get a different day job for all of that time. Without her, I would have been out working full-time. And we didn't have children. I'm not saying we didn't have them so that I could do my work. What I am saying is that the accordion players that came up around my time that did have children had different decisions to make.
Yes.
And, and they lived in different places. You have to be in a major metropolitan area to have enough variety of things to be able to move between off-Broadway dance, occasional Broadway show, chamber music, occasional ballet, occasional orchestra, and freelance and a club gig and all that.
Yes.
So it's very difficult to do that if you're living in a small city in the interior, or like, John Torcello's in LA, and the film industry dominates everything there, and he works very hard to get composers to understand the possibilities of the free bass accordion. And he recently played in a opera by John Adams called the Girls of the Golden West that had a big accordion part. See, when I first came to New York, the issue was that there were a couple people that were able to play very complicated music, but there wasn't enough of it being written in the United States for the kind of accordion that Americans were playing to keep us busy doing that. Now the issue is that more and more music composers are discovering the accordion, and more music is being written for it, and there are fewer players that can play it.
Yes.
Because the whole classical pedagogy thing there does not exist. The infrastructure that existed when I was a kid is not here anymore. I'm not saying that there are not some great teachers out there. There are. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I said, tell me about it.
I'll tell you. Yeah. It sounds like I don't have to. But yeah, the infrastructure is not there for that. The pedagogy is not there for it. Well, and please, anyone who is a great teacher or has a great teacher, understand that I'm saying in the numbers and in the locations that they were when I was a kid. I was in New Kensington, Pennsylvania. If there are 10 people that can point to that on the map that don't live in Pennsylvania, that town had an accordion teacher.
Yeah.
Yes. In New York, you would have there's Bill Schimmel. William Schimmel has been teaching accordion students for decades. But past Bill Schimmel, there is nobody that's been teaching like for decades turning out quality students year after year after year after year after year, and my teacher was turning out quality students all the time in this small town in Pennsylvania. Not all of them went on to become classical musicians or, God forbid, like me, a composer or whatever, because I horrified him when I became a composer because he hated anything that was written after like 1850 or so. So we parted ways at that point. So the things that I face are no different than the things now that any other instrumentalist or composer faces, which is that I was lucky enough to have a record a year come out almost from the mid 80s until 2000 on a lot independent labels, a lot of them in Europe, Winter and Winter, Review Records, a Japanese label as well. And those led to my having opportunities to tour in Europe and to perform. And now the Starkland label and the Zodic label, John Zorn's Zodic label, put out a number of things of mine, and those were an infrastructure. Now, all of those labels are either the ones that are, a lot of the ones in Europe are just gone. Winter and Winter hangs on, but they can't afford to produce a recording from the ground up like they did when Dave Douglas did Charms and when I did my duos with Alan Bird and Philip Johnson, my solo albums. They can't make enough revenue from the sales to even break even.
Yeah. Wow.
And Starkland faces much the same challenge. It's just that streaming which we're doing right now, has killed.
Yes,
killed everything. I used to get a large part of my income would be royalties from radio and TV usage in Europe, and I'm not talking tens of thousands of dollars, but I'm talking for somebody who had a modest income. It provided a large percentage of that. Now it's pennies on the $1,000, So now it's a couple less than $100 a year. It used to be thousands. Now it might be 100. So that revenue stream, which was a large one, is gone. And that used to provide you with a worldwide audience, which then when you toured, people familiar with what you were doing. Touring in the United States has always been problematic for people like us because the geographic distances are so vast. In Europe, you can do all by train or a van and reach 7 different countries in 10 days.
With probably concerts that are partially public funded, so everybody can afford to go. Yeah.
So anyway, being not having had children and having a wife who was willing to work full time. I loved cooking and I loved shopping and I all those things. So when I was around, I was a house husband. So we did share duties, but without that, I don't know what my life would have been like. But everybody's life, I think you can take some moments that had one thing been different, their life would have been radically different. If my parents had not divorced, it was horrible at the time, when they divorced, like I was 8 or 9, went to Western Pennsylvania. I was raised by my aunt and uncle. That's where I found Walter Grabowski, accordion teacher. Before that, I was studying with a guy who was perfectly good teacher, but he went door to door and all he taught was standards. Went to Walter Grabowski and he was like studying with a classical piano teacher.
Cool.
He introduced me to classical music and gave me a love for classical music. After that, when I decided not to go to any of the conservatories, I think one thing important thing I left out is that in the end I decided not to go to a conservatory because I wanted a liberal arts education. I wanted to learn more about literature, more about sociology, more about history. And so I wanted a well-rounded education. And Pennsylvania at the time had a terrific state college system, very affordable. My tuition was $225 a semester at the time. So my middle class aunt and uncle and my dad could afford that, And now it's thousands of dollars,
Oh, yeah.
And less and less public funding for it every year. But so I could do that and come out without a lot of student debt, which immediately made it easier once I got out of school to make different choices. But everything is fine right now, except I forgot why I started down this track.
You were saying if one thing had been different, your whole life.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Grabowski only discovered because my parents got divorced. Then I decided to go to Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Second or third year there, they changed from a state teachers college, Indiana State Teachers College, to a university. So they had a liberal arts curriculum. I went on to become the first liberal arts graduate in music. So I got to take all private classes in composition, advanced harmony, advanced theory, all with Robert Burnett. Robert Burnett was a composer who got commissioned by the Pittsburgh Symphony, and he was very well known locally. And he's the one that told me, you shouldn't be writing for string quartets and orchestra pieces. Your accordion needs
cool.
He's the one that told me that. So
super cool.
Without being in that Western Pennsylvania and making the decision not to go to a conservatory, I wouldn't have met Robert Burnett. When I was ready for graduate school, I told Mr. Burnett that I wanted to go to graduate school. And he said, why don't you go to University of Pittsburgh? Because Morton Subotnick's going to be there for a year.
Wow.
Teaching electronic music. And he's very, very good. And I did go to the University of Pittsburgh for 2 years. And he was very good. He was a composer, teacher without an axe to grind. It was you must study serial music. You must write none of that. You wrote what you felt like writing, and he would try to find you a way to write the best you could.
Amazing.
In whatever you were writing.
That's...
Not only that, but his classes he introduced me and my fellow students to the music of Cage, Lou Harrison, Morton Feldman, Earl Brown, and then the European avant-garde of Xenakis Penderecki.
Wow.
And then later on, he's the one who introduced me to Come Out.
Yes.
Steve Reich's Come Out. And Philip Glass's ensemble played at Cal Arts when I followed Mort Subotnick out to Cal Arts to continue studying with him. Phil Glass's ensemble played there, and I heard them for the first time.
Wow.
And then it's through Mort that I met Pauline, because when I was studying with him at Pitt, he said, I have a composer friend who co-founded the San Francisco Tape Music Center with me. Her name is Pauline Oliveros. I think you two would get along. She plays accordion. So we were pen pals.
Cool.
In like the late 60s.
Wow.
And she was teaching at UC San Diego at the time. And we exchanged letters and scores and became friends. And she introduced me to another piece by another San Francisco Tape Music Center composer, Ramon Sanders, called Desert Ambulance, which was for accordion and tape. And it was a fantastically wonderful, eccentric piece, you know. So that's through her. Then when I went to Cal Arts, and I fell in with a crowd like Peter Garland and David Mahler, and the teachers were James Tenney teaching acoustics, Leonard Stein teaching late Beethoven, Leonard Hammer was one of the piano teachers, Joel Krosnick, who eventually played with the Juilliard Quartet, was the cello teacher.
Oh my God.
And you were surrounded. The whole idea of Cal Arts was that every teacher would be a working professional. And so you were surrounded by people who had a life in music outside of the university.
Yeah.
And that was my first hint that one could make a life as a musician. I didn't know about making a living, but I all of a sudden was seeing people. I was surrounded by people whose whole life was centered around music.
Yes.
And I thought, wow, because up until then I thought I was going to have to, that my life would be in teaching and that would be it.
Yeah.
But I didn't really have the teaching gene in me. I wasn't always good at explaining why I did what I did or how I came to do what I do. I'm good at coaching people, but I'm not good at teaching them rudiments, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, these things one at a time. Had I not gone to New Music America with Relash and met John Zorn there and introduced myself to him, that's what I went up to.
Wow.
When he was playing there, I introduced myself to him and I said, this is so great. If you ever need an accordion player, I'd love to do it. And next year he wrote Cobra, and we toured with Cobra and made the recording. And during that tour, I said, I would love if you would think about writing me a solo piece. And he wrote me Roadrunner in 85, and then we recorded it in 86. And that became one of my most performed pieces. Not only that, but it became a standard repertoire in the accordion, classical accordion repertoire, which is, you know, a major thing. So yeah.
I have Roadrunner here. We could segue and check that out. That's the one with the young person, Marta Ondell, playing it.
Yes, I just found that by chance, and I said to John, he didn't know about it. I said, look, here's this young person, probably a student, whose teacher gave us to play, and she plays the daylights out of it. So yes,
Oops, sorry.
by all means.
Where? What did I do? There you are. Okay.
There she is. Or there. No,
Cool.
it's her.
From Spain. Okay. Unmute myself here. Wow. I was not familiar with that piece. D-Stet says in the chat, I feel like this composition also should require people yelling and belching in the audience. In approval or in agitation? I guess you can be at I don't know. Sometimes I think agitating is a very good thing regardless. Feeling agitated at something, but I see what you're getting at, D-Stet. Wow, what a performance too! Like so much energy.
It's amazing.
It's like,
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I find interesting psychologically about new music is if you play it in a concert, people can get outraged by the same kind of sounds that they take for granted and accept quite readily in film scores. I mean,
Yes.
and the amazing thing is that these film score composers rip all that stuff off from the avant-garde and have been for years, you know. So it's something about standing alone as a piece of music that some of us can find to be pretentious or to be trying to be outrageous, but you know, it's and the name of the piece is Roadrunner. Roadrunner was a comic. Comics have a rapid change of pace. Those scores, you would have a change of music styles every 5 seconds.
yeah.
And this is, you know, drawing from everything from pop culture to films to classical music to new music to sound effects, everything, and but with all of the very short attention span, and it's the kind of sounds that have been played on the accordion in certain types of music since the 1960s. I was playing things using those techniques. In fact, I showed them all to John Zorn. He brought over a stack of index cards and he said, show me everything you can do on the accordion that's unusual.
Cool.
And I showed him 53 things, which he wrote on 53 different cards, and every one of them showed up in the piece. So he was trying to literally show everything that could be done on the accordion, including some very beautiful melodic quotes in the middle of it, and quotes from classical music and folk music and standards and everything else. So I've played the piece hundreds of times, and the thing is that, as weird as it seems to people who are used to classical music, when I played this, this was the one piece I could play for preschool up to senior citizens in a assisted living home. They all got it. It was always like their favorite piece on the program that they
Cool.
would talk to me about afterwards. The preschoolers, if I played a loud sound, they would just jump in the air or scream. And the senior citizens just assumed I was like playing a movie score, you know, I was just playing the sound effects for a movie score, and they just loved it. And the interesting thing also was that if I played it just for preschoolers or anyone up to third grade, they would react without hesitation, second by second. If I played from 6th grade to 12th, that's where the inhibition set in.
Aha.
And
Oh,
and
interesting.
first you want to hear
how your friends react. But if I played from first grade to 12th grade, the 6th through 12th graders would be affected by how their brothers and sisters in first through 5th grade were reacting.
Oh,
And
cool.
they would be reacting to the way their brothers and
It
sisters
broke them
were
out of
reacting.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it would like take away some of their barriers. To
That's
just,
so fun.
so I learned a lot about psychology in doing, because I sometimes I used to feel afraid to play pieces like that in certain circumstances. But I did a residency in Iowa where I did like something like 60 performances over 30 days.
Wow.
2 or 3 in a day in every conceivable situation in a mileage radius of about 60 or 70 miles. They just handed me I arrived at the airport and they handed me a car and an itinerary and gave me a place to stay.
Wow.
And I did that piece every day in every kind of situation. And that and Fred Frith's Disinformation Polka and Elliot Sharp's Happy Chappy Polka, which is kind of a rap polka. Those were the 3 big hits of the program. And they're all pretty outrageous.
Making notes.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Should we listen to something else? Let's listen. Let's watch you again. That's what I'd like to do.
Okay.
Let me. I'm just gonna read off the list here that we have. We checked out Clarissa, we checked out Soft Landing, Spin Cycle, Music of Chance, The Swan and the Vulture, 11 Large Lobsters, the CNM Waltz, and both songs.
Yeah.
Not your composition.
Let's
but
do the C&M Waltz because one thing that I regained when I started working with dancers is that I went back to some of the social dance forms that I played as a kid. And the C&M Waltz is a piece right out of the tradition of the Slovenian waltzes that I played as a kid. And it's written for my cousins Charlie and Marion. Charlie's passed away about a year ago, but I grew up with Marion. She was the daughter of my aunt who raised me, so we're almost like brother and sister. And they were beautiful dancers. They went dancing to Slovenian American polka bands every weekend for more than 50 years. They just loved to dance. And I introduced him to Alex Meixner. Actually, I told him he's going to be in a band in your area soon in Johnstown, and they went to hear him, and then they met him and they became friends as well. But I've recorded this waltz alone, and I've recorded it with Brave Combo, and Alex Meixner has also recorded it on one of his albums. And
it's in the book, I think. I think it's in
Oh,
the
you have it
vignettes
there?
book. I think so. This would be a nice plug. This is a beautiful publication of Guy's compositions. No, yeah, it is in here. It is in here. This book. I'll find it while we're listening. I'll put a link in the chat.
Okay. But it was so much fun to play this with Alex because one of my favorite memories as a child in hearing the Slovenian American bands, which traditionally the orchestration was 2 accordions and sometimes an organ. And,
really? What kind of organ?
Yeah.
Like an electric organ?
Like a Hammond or...
Okay.
It was used as like a rhythm instrument and also to play on the ballads. And a bass and sometimes a saxophone.
Wow.
And a banjo. There was no drums in the traditional... That was the Frankie Yankovic band.
Really? Organ.
Yeah,
I never knew organ was in it.
Yeah, electric organ. And the thing that was amazing is that Frank Yankovic, for example, would sing the tunes and he would play the melody. And then there would be a young hotshot accordion player, Joey Miskelin was the guy for years, who would improvise an obligato line. And they were unbelievable lines. Joey joined the band when he was a teenager. He had to actually get an exception. So his parents had to sign papers giving him right of legal guardianship and all that.
to Frankie Yankovic.
Yes, and Alex can do that to a T. So I wish I had the I guess it on the Brave Combo recording, which is on one of my albums, which I can't remember which one now, or I would have included it. Plus, it's an album. We don't have a video of it. Alex does that, and I said he's like a racehorse. You just open the gate and you lead. So I just basically I played the tune and I gave him a written part for like one of the sections, and then I said for Alan, I said, Alex, when we get there, just do your thing. And he did his thing, and it sent chills up my spine. It's exactly what I remember. And I can't really do that. I can play the tune. I can't sing, but I wrote the tune and I can play it. But Alex was the one who could do that improvised line. It was one of the beauties of Slovenian music, which, you know, on the surface may look like pretty simple and easy to do, but these obligato lines were virtuoso things that don't exist in many other traditions, you know. But anyway, this is the solo version of it.
All
that I
right.
recorded for a video a couple years ago. Before I play today's piece, I'd like to tell you a little story about why I wrote the piece and how it came about. This is my sister cousin, Marion, in her first communion photograph. I call her my sister cousin because we were both raised by Marion's mother, Jenny, my aunt, and Jenny's husband, Raymond, my uncle. In 2009, I decided I wanted to pay tribute to my long relationship and very close relationship with Marion and Charlie, and also pay tribute to the fact that they are two of the most beautiful waltz dancers I've ever seen in my life. So I wrote them a piece called the C&M Waltz.
That song feels like a hug.
It's very emotional for me too. It's the first time I've heard it since Charlie passed away.
Oh
so.
wow, my condolences.
Thank you.
We got some more comments in the chat, and just to let everybody know, I recommend this book. Guy's music is, you can purchase it on his Bandcamp, you can listen to it on YouTube, you can find it on Spotify. But as far as published music, this is a beautiful publication you put out in 2020 that has a huge variety of stuff. It has a bunch of different levels of ability, to shoot for. Let me address the chat here because that's always a fun thing. And we're coming up on the end of our 2 hours. Dread, let's see, Jivazur, who's a longtime watcher, says lovely. Dread Pirate says bravo. Driftless Dawn, bravo. Thank you so much, Guy. Valley Drive says, what a beautiful touch on Guy's accordion playing. Yeah, I agree. Digi Fiddler says, C&M Waltz, one of my favorites. Birdie Wooster says, yeah, I really love that one.
Nice.
People from all over the country. So let's see. Yeah, it's 1 minute before the hour, but we have time for another tune to end on, or we can go now. What do you feel?
Well, 11 Large Lobsters is about a minute long.
Okay,
if you want.
perfect. Which is also in the book.
It is
Which
in
is
the book.
really fun. That's so cool because it's extended technique, which is really fun, I think, for me. And I think it's really cool to include in a book because it's stuff that we in North America don't really get to see very often. You know, you're going to find a lot of like oompa left hand, but you're not going to find very many times that you're going to stumble upon what the heck is this? Cool. I want to do that. Can I show the chat real quick?
Yes, of course.
What it
You
looks
could
like?
even show a page of the score if you want.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I'll hold it up.
Because you have to invent your own notation system for this kind of piece in a way that's clear and easy to understand.
Okay, on 2 pages. So I'll show them, and then I'll show the. Do you call this the key? What do you call that? Well, this is page 1. I think everybody can see, and then you go to key to the symbols. So
Yeah.
I'll read them out. It'll be more fun for listening. If it's marked 4, 3, or 2, it's strike register switch, and the number in the circle indicates the fingering that you're to use on the register switch.
Yeah, that's so you don't run out of switches or fingers.
Smart.
Yeah, exactly.
Air button, open the air in and out, smack the bellows with your right hand, stomp with your right foot, shout hey, and a sharp inhalation, sounding like a gasp of a surprise or horror. Let me read that properly, like you wrote. Sounding like a gasp of surprise or horror.
Right. I've gone both ways. I probably performed this piece 100 times as well.
This one's so much fun. You've recorded it, I think, a few times, right?
Yeah, I have, yes.
Let's see. I need to remember where it is. Which, let me go to our.
Oh, that was in the bars. It's taken from the Barzell interview.
Thank you. Yes, we didn't even get to that. That I think is phenomenal because I remember when you did the workshop. I was at the workshop that you did for the Brooklyn Accordion Club.
Oh yes, right.
And I have those filed away somewhere, but that was fantastic. And this reminds me of that. Similar ideas. I'll share that with everybody at another time because we just don't have time. But well, I guess I can tell them about it right now. This is a video that is to me it's a workshop with Guy Klucevsek on your concept, sort of the way you think and approach stuff, and it's very, very cool. I'll play just a couple seconds of it so the chat can get the flavor.
Yeah, NYU is archiving my compositions and videos
wow.
and things like that. So that's how this, and they decided to make a video to go along with it, like a master class. Or
This is phenomenal. Yeah, I wasn't aware of this until you sent it. Really, really useful.
it's quite amusing that almost every video that we've watched was done in this very place where I'm sitting now in my living room. This is a different angle. You don't get to see the sofa and the windows, but it's the same room.
At least you don't have to work on the toll booth, as my dad says
One
to
of the
me.
primary things I like to do in my music over the years is work with odd meters or unusual subdivisions of normal meters and combine them with theme and variation and unusual techniques. Even with a simple meter like 4/4, which is normally just subdivided 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. There's a piece of mine called Clairvoyant, which has a rhythm like this. Now that's not quite so unusual by itself.
We listened to that piece.
Subdivided at 3 plus 3 plus 2, but
I do the same thing with the melody. And,
Mute my microphone. Sorry.
it's a matter of when I find a rhythm, I improvise with it, and I try to see if there's a melody that will fit into that rhythm. If it does, I save it and I work with it, and if it doesn't, I toss it away and try something else. But this one happened to work. So the basic pattern gets set up. And then this melody comes in. So the melody too.
This
Where's
is so
those
cool.
lobsters?
I know. I gotta
They've
pause it
escaped.
there. We gotta get the lobsters. Okay. Now I didn't do my homework and figure out where this is, so
Yeah,
pardon
I
me.
don't know either,
Do you happen to
so-
know? Okay, let's see if it's.
No, not unless you see me slapping my accordion. Then
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. That's.
that was that it? No.
Let's
I don't
see.
know. I really don't know.
We'll
See,
find it.
And I was trying.
Nope. Hands are still on the buttons.
Keep your hands on the keyboard at all times.
Jeannie Valonis in the chat says hi, and this is wonderful.
Oh, thank you, Gene. Oh yeah, we should just.
I'll find it. I'll find it.
You can paste it on the chat for people to find later.
It's 1 minute. Let's see.
It's 1 minute, but
But yeah.
it could be anywhere.
Okay. All right. That's good. Always leave them wanting more.
Right. More or less.
more or less. Oh, all right. Everybody in the chat is saying thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
My great pleasure. Thank
Yeah.
you, Dallas, and thank you everyone who tuned in.
Yeah, this is fantastic. It's just been an honor and a privilege for you to come on and share your ideas and your great artistry and your tremendous personality and humanity with us. Thanks so much, Guy. You've been a hero of mine for a long time and a constant inspiration.
Thank you, Dallas.
We'll say goodbye on the chat, but then we'll just hang out in Zoom and I'll say another quick goodbye to you.
Okay.
All right. See everybody next week.